Okay, what I'm going to do now is go over a couple of the problems from the homework. The votes were cast, and the ones that people wanted to go over the most were 3 and 6. I'm actually going to help you set up number 1 so you get a bonus. So I'm going to be going over 2 problems and helping you set up this first number 1. All right, so looking at number 1. It says it is given that angle A and angle B are complementary. If the measure of angle B is 15 more than twice the measure of angle A, determine the measure of both angles algebraically. Now, remember, complementary means adds up to 90 degrees. 2 angles or more, typically 2 angles that add up to 90 degrees are complementary to one another. So 2 angles that add up to 90, okay? So it says if the measure of angle B is 15 more than twice the measure of angle A, determine the measure of both angles algebraically. All right, so let's start with the angles. We're going to have angle A and angle B. All right, it says more about angle B than it does about angle A. Do you notice how it says that angle B is 15 more than twice the measure of angle A? So they're actually telling you more about angle B. So I'm going to start, because they're telling me more about angle B, I'm going to have to name angle A first. Okay, so I'm going to say angle A is equal to X. I'm just going to call it X. Then I'm going to name angle B based on what I wrote for angle A. So since it says that angle B is 15 more than twice the measure of angle A, if you remember from last year, more than means addition, and twice means you're multiplying something by 2. So if I called angle A X, and angle B is 15 more than twice the measure of angle A, well, we can write it like this. Twice the measure of angle A would be 2 times X. Because remember, we're calling angle A X. Now, we could have called it anything. We could have called it Z or Y, but we called it X, or I called it X. So angle B is 15 more than twice the angle, so I'm going to have to add a 15. Right, so now basically what you have is an angle like this, so you have X, right, and 2X plus 15. So I've basically given you just about, I've given you 75% of the problem. So you can finish the rest, all right? Let's go on to number 3. All right, it says, Callista insists that if 2 angles are supplementary to the same angle, then they must have the same measure. Is this true? Support your answer with examples. So, first of all, supplementary means adds up to 180. So adds up to 180 degrees. All right, so it says if 2 angles are supplementary to the same angle, they must have the same measure. Is this true? Well, let's draw a picture here. I'm going to draw this picture. We have 2 lines that are intersecting, calling them straight lines, right? And let's call this one angle A. I'm going to call this angle B. I'm going to call this one over here angle C. And I'm going to call this one angle D. Okay. Now, we're trying to figure out If two angles are supplementary to the same angle, must they have the same measure? Because that's what Callista is saying. So let's look at angle A. If I'm looking at angle A here, there's a new color. Looking at angle A, right? So that's what I'm outlining. Angle A. Now, what is that supplementary to? Right? So, what is that supplementary to? Remember, supplementary means adds up to 180, a straight angle. All right, a straight angle. So it's actually supplementary to two different angles. It's actually supplementary with angle B, right? But it's also supplementary with D. So I'm going to write this down. A, so the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is equal to 180. All right, so that's true. Now, let's look at another angle. What about C down here? What is that supplementary with? Well, it looks like it's supplementary with the same angles that A is, right? So C is supplementary with B. It's also supplementary with D, right? So we could say that the measure of angle C plus the measure of angle B is equal to 180, right? Both of those are true statements. These are both true based on the diagram, right? Both true. Okay, now, looking at this, if A and C are supplementary to the same angle, does that mean that measure of angle C, put an angle here, measure of angle C is equal to the measure of angle A? A, I don't know why I wrote 8A. Okay, is that true? I want you to think to yourself, does that have to be true? Well, if you think about it, we don't know what B is. We don't have numerical values to deal with here. But if you plug in any value for B, so let's just say B was 40, what would A have to be? Well, it would have to be 140. Well, if B was 40 here, it would have to be 40 here, which would mean C would have to be 140. Okay, it doesn't matter what you plug in for B. Based on this diagram, A and C have to be the same. And also, if you look at the diagram, remember, we have our bow tie here, which means what kind of angles are D and B, but also A and C. They are vertical to one another, and we also know vertical angles are congruent. All right, so right here, we have an example, right? So here we go. Hopefully you understood that. Gets kind of confusing, but once you get the picture, now you might not be able to get a picture, right? You might have had a hard time with the picture, which I understand. But once you look at this picture and you see two angles that are supplementary to the same angle, right? A and C, so A and C are both supplementary with angle B. So they're asking, is Callista right in saying that A and C have to be the same? Well, if two angles are supplementary to the same angle, they have to be equal, okay? They have to be equal. They're measures. All right? All right, we're going to move on to number 6. All right. So it says, in the diagram shown below, it is given. That means it's known that line FB and EH intersect at A. So FB and EH intersect at A. And EAG is right. So we can write that. That's a piece of given information, EAG. So this entire angle is right. So this combined with this one are both right. We don't know what this one is, we don't know what this one is, but we do know that they add up to 90 degrees. Okay? Because they're right angle. Give two different angles that are supplementary to both, that are both supplementary to EAF. So let's find EAF. EAF is going to be this one here. It's going to be that. So, supplementary. So think to yourself, what is going to make a straight line with EAF? So, let's see here. We have this angle here. Right? Which angle is that? Hopefully you see that right there is this angle here, right? So this angle and this angle make 180 degrees. So that angle is angle FAH. Right? That's one angle that is supplementary with EAF. Right? EA, right? Okay, so we need another one. Well, what's another one? Well, if you look at the other direction, we have that, right? So we have this angle, but we also have this angle. So what angle is that? Add all together makes a half circle or a straight angle, 180 degrees, and that is angle EAB. And what we're going to write here is, now the next part is, what must be true of these two angles? Well, if these angles are both supplementary to the same angle, they are both supplementary to this angle, that goes back to our number 3. If two angles are both supplementary to the same angle, then their measures must be the same. They must be equal. All right? Also, right here on number 3, you want to say yes. So we never wrote yes. Make sure and write yes. Right? So come back here. What's our reasoning, or what's our what are we saying must be true? All right? I'm actually going to type this. It'll be easier for you guys to read. So these two angles must have the same angle measurement because of the fact that they are both supplementary to the same angle. Okay, they're both supplementary to EAF. All right, so whatever EAF is, when you add FAH, you get 180, and that gives you 180, which means they have to be the same. And also you can see another thing. Well, what do you see about, take a different color here, what do you see about this angle and this angle? If you try to ignore this line that's going out, if you kind of can ignore that, you basically have, right, you have this, and you have this, right? So you have your vertical angle here, and your vertical angle here. So the two angles that we named over here are actually vertical angles. So that's another reason why we know that they are congruent, or the same angle measurement. Okay? There you go. There's some help. Hopefully that helped you out.